What's going on, Professor?
Welcome, everyone. How are we doing today? Anything new and exciting going on out there? Alexander has his drum set behind him, I see. It's not Friday. You can't bang on the drum. All right, so we got about 80 people in the room. Let's give it a few more minutes. So today, Josh is going to lead a discussion on anthropology. Go ahead, Josh, take it away.
Okay, welcome everybody. Anthropology is the study of humans. So for the rest of the class, we'll be listing things that humans do. That should take up our time.
All right. So any questions before we get started? Concerns? Do we have any meetings after class today for any groups? If so, put it in the chat box. Just put a link to the document that we didn't do last week. We're going to do this week. Group 10 needs a meeting. Okay, anybody else? So everybody knows exactly what you're doing.
Not quite, Professor. Group 10, we've narrowed it down to, I believe, three different things that we wanted to do. So we just wanted your opinion on them.
Yeah, my opinion doesn't mean anything. All right. All right, shall we get this show on the road? What do we got? 3 minutes into it, 89, almost 90 people. We'll wait for a few more. All right. So we got a few people on camera. Everybody else is just sleeping, taking their afternoon nap. Cool.
I'm eating. I don't want to be disrespectful.
All right, so let's get started if there's no questions. All righty. So week 8, we have 2 more weeks left and we're done. Woohoo. I'm so excited. All right. So this week's agenda, we're going to talk about chapter 11, the Samsung, which is due the 24th in 2 days on Wednesday. Thumbtack materials, what we're going to do is go over a little thumbtack. And then Wednesday, we're going to talk about chapter 12. And then any questions about the group final, we're going to take care of. So announcements. So if you want to make an appointment, do it this week. And then not going to take any more meetings after week 9, unless it's an emergency, but we shouldn't have any emergencies. It's just a report. All assignments that have not been turned in can be submitted for partial credit. So Josh will be more than happy to grade and give you a point for every assignment that's late and that you're going to turn in before March 5th, 2021, end of week 2. So those of you who haven't turned in some assignments, get them turned in. So partial credit's better than no credit. All right. As always, I always give extra credit for the iEvals. I don't want you to tell me what you put on the iEval. I just want you to give me a copy that you actually took it. So a lot of people misunderstand that. I don't know how, but they do. So they go, well, I'm not going to tell them what I said on my iEval, but I don't want to know what you said on your iEval. I will. I just want you to make a copy of it and send it to me so I can give you extra credit for it. All right, so chapter 11 is the competitive strategy. This is the dynamics of competitive strategy, kind of a diagram, what it can look like. There's many different things that you can do on this. So we'll go from there. A set of companies that compete in similar ways with similar business models, pursuing similar sets of customers. So for example, in the larger airlines, the full fare segment, you have Delta, United, American Airlines. And then in the discounted low fare segment, you have Southwest, JetBlue, Frontier, Spirit, and a few more that are local airlines. And what you see is they actually do have a barrier to mobility. It's very difficult for Southwest to take on international flights. One, they don't have the planes to do it. They don't have the room. They don't have the capacity for the luggage. They don't have the room to store meals and food for a, anywhere from an 8 to 20-hour flight. And they definitely don't have the capacity in the leg room to sit in a chair for 20 hours like that. Okay. So any factors that limits the ability of a company to move between strategic groups. So as you can see, we have two different strategic groups, and they're not going to likely be taking over the routes. Delta and America are not going to take over Southwest routes. Okay. The strategy canvas is a useful tool not only for uncovering existing differences among competitors, but also for identifying new ways to beat rivals. So a strategic canvas can look different, and basically it's putting the ideas and what the identifying what the companies do and new ways to beat your rivals. So if, for example, Southwest, you might be able to identify new opportunities for competitive positioning by studying the difference between how their airlines and cars are competing across relevant criteria. So if I was to fly from Southwest from Orange County, not Orange County, but Ontario to Portland, it would take 3 or 4 hours in an airplane because they always stop in Seattle for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they do. And so when they come, as opposed to driving a car, and it'll cost maybe $300, and a car would be half that price and maybe take a little bit longer, but I wouldn't have to rent a car when I arrived in Portland. So I'd have my own car. I would save half the cost of an airline ticket. So that's how they compete. So what could Southwest do to make me not drive my car? So what kind of incentives could they do to compete? So a strategy canvas, remember we talked about Blue Ocean strategics. And what Blue Ocean does is it moves outside of the realm of the red ocean where everybody's competing. So for example, Southwest could give me a free car rental, maybe knock off a few dollars on my ticket cost, and then give me a car rental when I get there. So that might be some incentive for me to take the plane as opposed to drive there to save the money. Okay, so a strategy canvas can also look something like this, where you have your 3 major players in the full service, and then you have second tier and third tier. So obviously they're not going to, United and American are not going to take away business from Southwest. One, they're too expensive. 2, they fly out of completely different airports. So United, even though some of them share some of the airports, their major hubs are in bigger airports where Southwest doesn't fly normally, and they get to charge a lot less because they have to pay a lot less for those. Okay. So the competitor response profile, a profile of competitors that identifies its objectives and assumptions, its strategy, its resources and capabilities in order to anticipate how the competitor might respond to rivals. So what drives the competitor? So these are the things that you need to know about your competition, what the competitor is doing, what the competitor is capable of doing. So for example, is Southwest capable of taking on Delta when it comes to international flights? No, it really isn't. It can't do those flights because it doesn't have the capacity or the experience or the planes to do those. So Delta's not going to be too worried about taking away business and international business. Now, Southwest to Mexico might be a different story. Southwest to, from California to maybe Florida, that might be a different story. They might be able to take some business by, doing some price matching or whatnot. But it's kind of hard, when you're used to flying Delta, you get a full meal, and then Southwest, all they do is throw a bag of peanuts at you. So if Southwest doesn't take a significant market share away from Delta, they probably won't do anything. But if Southwest does take a market share away from Delta, then they're going to react. And how are they going to react? Good question. So Delta makes a competitor profile, and they see what Southwest is going to do. And so the objectives, the strategy, the assumptions, the resources and capabilities. So this is just another example of putting this down on paper on the canvas. Delta is likely to largely ignore entry into its international city part markets by Southwest because they know they can't compete in international, maybe Mexico or Canada, but definitely not something, more than 8 hours, 5 hours, maybe 8 hours. So the objective is to leverage the benefit of international scale for overall cost. So a lot of the Delta flyers, they want to keep their frequent flyer miles. They want to stay on the same airline. So that is the reason why they would fly Delta domestically as opposed to flying Southwest. So there's many, many reasons why they will, and some reasons why they won't. But that's your job, is to find out why. What's the competition doing? And this relates directly to your project. When you get into a new industry, you're going to have new competition, and you want to know what the competitor is doing and how we're going to, what the barriers to entry are going to be and how we are going to challenge those barriers to entry. Okay, so how to beat the competition. There's 4 principles. Know your strengths and weaknesses, because by knowing what you're good at and what you're weak at, you can apply that to your competition. Bring strengths against weaknesses. So for example, Delta is very good at international flights, and they want to keep their domestic flights. So they give frequent flyer miles for their frequent flyers to use those on their domestic flights, as opposed to when they take a long international flight, they'll rack up a lot of points and they can get some free points or free upgrades or whatever they want to apply to. Protect and neutralize vulnerabilities. So for example, Southwest knows that it cannot fly internationally to be competitive with these large things. So that's their vulnerability. So what they do is they specialize in keeping their fares low, and they specialize on certain routes. Develop strategies that cannot be easily imitated or copied. So for example, loading up a 777 as opposed to loading up a 737 full of humans is going to be a lot more difficult, take a lot more time. Delta has gotten this down to a science where they can load everybody up very quickly and unload everybody very quickly. So that's something that these companies cannot duplicate very easily, and probably will never do that. Okay. So know your strengths and weaknesses, resources and capabilities that deliver unique value. Resources and capabilities subject to rapid obsolescence, easy imitation, or high cost not recouped by value. Okay, so a careful assessment of strengths and weaknesses from the foundation of competitive strategy. So the more you know your strengths and weaknesses, you can capitalize on that and become more competitive. Okay, so target strength against competitors, weakness for greatest competitive effect. Google leveraging software engineering, strength to develop the Android operating system. As we talked about before, Nokia did not keep up with the software, with the 3G, 4G, and 5G. They pretty much became obsolete. There's still a little bit of their business left, but not much to compete with companies like Samsung or Apple that's spent a lot of money developing their own phones and systems, and the companies that use Google for the Android operating system. So strength or neutralizing weaknesses, Starbucks does a very good job. They protect its atmosphere. You won't see something similar to Starbucks. When I was in New York City a few years back, there was literally a Starbucks every half block. Almost every building had a Starbucks. Some were very nice, some were just small kiosks, but they protected themselves. They did what they needed to do to keep the competition from moving in, and the places were nice. Some people like the coffee. They say it's very good coffee. I don't drink Starbucks, so I couldn't tell you. All right, so any questions about this so far before we go on to game theory? Make sure you guys are all awake. All right. Yes, group 3 will be right after class. Group 10 will be right after that.
Hey, Professor, Group 10, we're going to cancel the meeting today if we can meet with you after class on Wednesday. We're going to do some group discussion on our own today, come up with the product, and then approach you about it on Wednesday.
That's fine.
All right.
Okay, other questions, concerns so far? All right. All right, so have you guys done a little game theory yet in any other classes? No game theories? Not that fun anyway. Jacqueline has. All right. So game theory is what this is a prisoner's dilemma, which is the most common game theory that they use for an example. So the story goes, there are two prisoners. If one tells on the other one, they take off half the sentence. If the other one tells on the other one, they take off the sentence. If they both be quiet, they'll get 1 year. If they both confess, they get 1 year. But if one rats the other one out, they get 2 years. So what this kind of teaches you is there's always consequences to every strategy and every decision that you make. The more common one is an Nash equilibrium, which is a set of moves in business, which is a set of moves in a game that simultaneously maximize each firm's payoff, given the choices of the rival from which no player has an incentive to defect. So you're always going to take what is the maximum benefit or payoff to the company when you're going against another company. So for example, the dominant strategy is what a lot of the companies will take when competing against each other. And then the tit for tat strategy you'll see in like the cola wars, Pepsi and Coca-Cola. One will do coupons 1 week, the other one will come out with coupons the next week. So it looks kind of like up and down as far as the big sales go with a coupon, no coupon, it goes back down again. So, and then there's some people who will always buy Pepsi and who will always buy Coke. So it doesn't matter how much of a coupon you have unless it's really a big coupon. All right. So in the case of a monopoly, the way they compete is they don't compete because there's nobody to compete with them. So utilities, for example, I told you the story when I was had an office in Riverside. The gas company said, yes, you have to pay a ridiculous amount for a down payment, and we're going to charge you $35 a month no matter if you use any gas or not. So I said, okay, well, give me the number to your competitor. Oh, we don't have a competitor. It's either you take it or leave it. We don't give a shit. So that's pretty much what a lot of times a monopoly is. They do whatever they want. A lot of times they're supposed to be regulated, but they're not so much regulated. And the reason a lot of firms, a lot of utility companies get a monopoly is because they spend a lot of money building an infrastructure. For example, electricity. putting up wires, doing the boxes, the transformers and all this. The gas companies and the phone companies. Well, the phone companies not so much anymore. They used to have a monopoly, but not with wireless, which we'll talk about next. And then the gas companies and the utilities, they actually build an infrastructure, and the government says, well, since you spent all this money, we'll let you have a monopoly on it in this particular area, so you can make your money back. Okay, so oligopoly, that is like the cell phone companies, for example, when you have only a few people or a few companies in the market. So they make moves very carefully. The rivals will detect their moves, and it's a tit for tat type of situation where one will discount it, the other one will discount it. Cable is very similar. I just recently switched cable because I had one cable for a year. They were going to double my price on everything. So there was another cable company offering half the price, which was the same price I was paying for before. But the other company didn't care. They said, yeah, we're going to raise your price. We don't care. So I went with the other company for half the price. And then I'm sure when their price doubles in another year, I'll go back to another company. Okay, perfect competition, a market with many firms. That's the industry I'm in right now with the copiers and the printers. So we do not have the luxury of setting prices. We actually react to prices, and it's usually the prices on Amazon or some other online company selling the product at a very, very low price. So they'll sell 1 million pieces and make $1 off of them just to make $1 million. All right, questions about that so far? So that's kind of game theory. Trolleyology is another game theory that's kind of a little bit different. It's more psychology based. If you get a chance, read the trolleyology game theories. It's kind of interesting. If you're psych majors and economy majors. All right, we will continue on. All right, we have Samsung is our case study for this this week. So the market, international consumer electronics, is what Philips and Panasonic are in. So the unique value proposition, each of these companies has a unique value proposition that got them the competitive edge over the others, and that's created a competitive advantage when it comes to the market. So different products for different geographical regions is what Philips was known for. A wide variety of electronics products start in light bulbs, added vacuum tubes, and X-ray tubes. So those things you probably don't know, but they used to be in all the electronics. I'm not even old enough to know all those. Okay, so resource and capabilities. Philips was very good at research and development, was known for developing breakthrough technology in their labs in their different major countries and regions. So they didn't just have one R&D facility in one country. They had many different R&D facilities in many different countries. That's what made them at that time very unique and very competitive. So they had national organizations. Philips national organizations excelled at tailoring products to local markets. So the R&D would actually come up with very good products in their local markets, and they would service and manufacture and the sales in those local markets. But they were a global company, and that's one of the things that did end up hurting them in the end. The products began to be very high cost to manufacture, especially in the European countries where the labor cost was very high. They couldn't create an economies of scale because they were decentralized. So they couldn't really organize one facility where R&D applied to everything. So Philips had to close a third of its manufacturing plants, and Philips was slow to market worldwide with producing new products to compete with the other companies. So Philips structure required agreement among the national organizations before worldwide production launch. So everybody, all the different local Philips branches had to actually get together, They actually had to approve it. So what would happen is a couple of them say, no, we don't want to do that because our market would not benefit from that, so they wouldn't do it. So they'd have to, it would be very difficult coordinating a global activity. So Panasonic is a company that took over Philips in the electronics after World War II. They were able to centralize more of their manufacturing, and they were able to standardize reliable products offered at low prices. And they were also good products as in quality. So Matsushita is a company that owns Panasonic. They've been in my industry since almost the beginning, since the patent wore off from Xerox. They are one of the few manufacturing companies that actually makes parts for almost all the major copiers and printers and faxes. Faxes not so much anymore. They don't use faxes. This thing called email and the internet took over. So resources and capabilities, they're very efficient. They're able to do a high volume product. They're able to centralize and create the lower costs so they can have an advantage. So Samsung takes over what Panasonic left off. Unique value proposition for them was different depending on the target market. So Samsung offers a range of products around the globe, everything from a cheap cell phone in Africa to a very expensive Note phone here in the United States. So they are able to manufacture these, distribute them around the world through one location, and we're able to achieve economies of scale doing that. So Samsung's began with low-cost manufacturing, vertically integrated towards the manufacturing of final products, DVDs, TVs, phones, all kinds of different electronics. They required committing significant resources and investment in R&D. So they did keep up with the technology. They kept developing the technology. The 3D television, kind of a really amazing thing, very expensive, but very amazing. So invested in digital technologies as they overtook analog technologies. All right, questions about your case study? No questions about the case study. Let's see if this works. Okay. Can everybody see this?
Everyone has a to-do list.
There we go. Let me do this real quick. All right, everybody should be able to see this. Let me know if you can't.
But the thing is, 41% of the stuff on it never gets done. And the reason is simple. Yes, that carpet stain drives you crazy. But finding a carpet cleaner to get rid of it is actually worse. Sifting through 75 million search results, cold calling, asking your neighbors if they know a guy. We're in the 21st century. Isn't everything supposed to be?
So you can't hear it or see it?
I could see it and hear it, but there was some kind of menu or something on your screen that was being blocked off. I don't know. Maybe other people didn't have that issue.
Carpet cleaners. Just tell us about your project to get bids from available pros who are ready to do what you need. You can read reviews, talk to pros, and hire your favorite, all in the app. No matter what else happens today, you will get that carpet cleaned. And no matter what's next, we can help. Get started at thumbtack.com.
All right. So as you can see, he's not very happy with Thumbtack. If you read that, he doesn't like Thumbtack at all because they kind of screwed him over a few times, which Thumbtack is known to do. Some of the things that Thumbtack does is not very good. Some of the things that they do are okay. So they're bad at structuring the money when it comes to paying for leads. So they do two different things. They do an instant match, which automatically they say, yes, you're qualified, but they're also qualifying 12 other companies at the same time. And then, or that you can do every time you submit a bid, they charge you for it. So neither one of these are ideal when it comes to the structure, but there's really no other way. I mean, there are other ways you can do it, but for them, they insist this is the only way they can do it. Customer service is not very helpful because most customer service agents do not understand the business. They don't understand what you're trying to do. For example, when I was doing Thumbtack many years ago, well, not many years ago, a few years ago, we always wanted the make and model of the machine because because there's a lot of machines out there that people will go on the internet and say, well, I have a $50 printer and I want it fixed. Well, we charge $95 for a service call, so why would you get a $50 printer fix? You wouldn't. So, but we wouldn't know that, so we would bid on it, and the people will say, well, $95 is ridiculous. You know, why would we pay $95 and the printer only costs us $50? Well, we didn't know that, so we'd have to bid on it. So you'd have to kind of go through the bids to see what was plausible and what wasn't plausible. Okay, again, the competitive analysis. And then now we're going to get to the assignment where your group is starting a company to compete with Thumbtack. You will need to define your strategic group. You will be asked the questions: what drives the competitor? What is the competitor doing? What is the competitor capable of doing? All right, so this is the link if you haven't already got it. And I am going to create some breakout rooms. And we've done this so many times, you guys know what to do, right? All right, let's go to your breakout rooms. A little bit of a lag today. All right, guys, let's go to your breakout room.